Okay, switching up the subject, stepping into COVID. COVID-19. Boy, it is still ongoing like a wildfire. In fact, I would argue it has more precedence than Black Lives and Black history.
Coronavirus.
Corona, and not a drink. We should be sponsored by them. We're talking about lockdown number 2, people. We had a recent announcement from our lovely leader, Mr. Boris, who has came to us with a new idea of how to lock us down. This time, he's used the words called tiers. Tier 1, 2, and tier 3. And depending on which tier you are, there'll be different restrictions depending on what town, city, or village that you live in. So, what does lockdown number 2 mean for the UK and mean for you?
For a large chunk of, actually, no, I think for everyone to an extent, a hit to one's mental health, primarily. If it happens, my stance has always been this as soon as a second wave was announced, I knew that, okay, that means there's going to be a second lockdown of some sort. However, I'm sure government officials would be smart enough to know that if they were just to say, right, everything's locked down like off the bat, that's not going to go down too well. So I've been saying to many people close to me, like, they're just going to do it in stages. They're just going to kind of work back, ease it in until it's in a state of full lockdown. I don't know I don't know if that's going to happen, but it looks like that's going to happen. But even so, even if it's not a full lockdown, especially at this time of year, you know, we understand that a lot of people suffer from so it's normally a bad time of year anyway, because a lot of people pass in the colder months. On top of that, people suffer from seasonal that syndrome. I forgot what it's called. Apologies. Right, it's when
That's sad, isn't it?
Yeah,
seasonal affective disorder.
that's the one. Thank you. So when you mix all that in with the fact that people's lives are going to be controlled again and restricted, it just screams out that a lot of people are going to be affected mentally. Mental health is going to be tested to the maximum, like no time before. If you're not allowed to socialize, especially during, like, depending on kind of what your belief system is, or you might not even need one, but during the Christmas period and New Year's period, it is normally a time where people kind of congregate at mass, and to be told, and to be fair, this is one of the main ones, like, that's mass congregation, mass kind of interaction, alcohol, drinking, partying and stuff like that. So for that to be taken away from society, to me, unless you're ready and unless you're prepared for it, unless you've seen the signs before it hits you in the face, it's really going to kind of test people's mental strength. Even the strongest people are going to be tested.
Do you believe people are going to stick to it during this so-called holiday period?
Some people will, some people won't.
Okay. I'll be interested to see how the UK and the law and enforcers will react when people say, you know what, forget this is my one time to have a break from slavery throughout the year and spend time with my family. This is a time in the year when people go back home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people don't even live in the same town where their family and friends are, so they go back home. This is a opportunity to actually go back home and reset yourself and go and see your family, your mom, your dad, your sister, your uncles, your aunties, your cousins, your niece, your nephews, your friends. This is the one time that people wait for, because they've been slogging and slaving the whole year trying to earn some money. And now you're being told, oh, sorry, because you're not part of that household, you can no longer go. Well, there's a thing called humanity. Humanity will always override any sort of rule or barrier or anything. Humanity will always rise. It really will. We've seen this in the overturning of literal nations when they've gone against, the people have rised up against the governments. That's what happens when humanity comes into play.
I agree. I just think that it's funny. Today, me and my missus, we were in a supermarket just waiting by the checkout, and I turned around and said, could you ever imagine, like way back in March, that everyone around you is going to be wearing masks? And we both looked at each other, was like, we'd never have thought it would come to this. And I said to her, I said, this is how quick and easy that a few people, if you kind of scale it in terms of who's in charge, who's not in charge, a few people of power in charge can change the narrative of how people live. So your question about will people stick to it? I think the majority of people will, because that's how control, like that, and we there's all elements of control that we have to kind of succumb to. But for the most part, for people to be told to stay at home, I think most people will. But this will probably be the biggest test, like you said, because this is the biggest time of year when people kind of recollaborate, reset for the new year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much control the powers that be have had, and has that the prior fear, the prior information that they've given out, has that been enough to kind of keep a lot of people under the cosh for this most testing time?
Thank you for that.
So
Sorry, I just want to throw in a little piece of knowledge before you jump in there, T. Just wanted to say, 2 days ago, so it is the 15th now, so on the 13th of the 10th, the Independent News reported that 3 students were fined £10,000 each over a house party for up to 100 people. So students held a house party, up to 100 people turned up. They were fined £10,000 each because they broke the restrictions. Just saying that now. That happened in East Anglia. Thank you. Over to you, T.
thank you, bro. I was waiting for Ems to say his favorite quote, but he didn't say it, so I will say it for him. Fear is the currency of control. We touched on this when we done the Plandemic, and he was bang on, like you said. I apologize if this may come off as offensive to other people, but it's true. That's what used to happen. I remember a year ago, 2 years ago, you would see predominantly Chinese people with masks on. You probably laugh.
Yeah, that was standard, wasn't it?
They've been doing that for the
Right.
longest time.
Yeah, and
in
you
Asia.
would laugh. You think like, oh, what's going on there? Why have you got a mask on? Right? But look how quick it's happened. Everyone's got a mask on. Everyone is literally like walking away from each other and keeping that 2-meter distance. You don't know whether to shake each other's hand or bump elbows now. You know, that's all changed within a space of 6 months. That's one. 2, so boy, oh boy, oh boy. So I had a conversation with someone about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they had it on good authority that lockdown will be coming back round near sort of half term, right? And they're talking about how they'll probably close the gyms and everything else. It's got to happen. This was about 2-3 weeks ago. And then lo and behold, these figures have started going up. Headlines have started coming up. 2, 3 tiers being introduced. And I'm just there looking at it. I'm thinking, hold on. I had this conversation 2-3 weeks ago before any of this started. Right? And someone was telling me we're going to go into lockdown around half term. The reason why I'm bringing this up is this. Now, everything that's happening now in terms of the headlines, the numbers, the controversy that's spiraling out about a gym in Liverpool that's refused to close and they've been fined, and then gyms are now petitioning to say they need to stay open
Yep.
and everything else.
Yep.
It's now again reinforcing that fear in people, so that when they say lockdown is here, the mass will adhere to the rules. Right? It's
Yep.
not just
I hear
right, straight lockdown, right? Everyone will be uproared. Like, no, it's not happening. But guess what? They made their decision 2-3 weeks ago. I had a conversation. And is that a coincidence that 3 weeks later, numbers drastically start going up? Every social platform you see, it's all about COVID, and then lockdown and postcode lockdowns. London is going into lockdown. Essex is going into lockdown. Liverpool is already going into lockdown, amongst other cities.
Who controls that narrative?
That's my point. That's what I'm trying to get at. So to me, this whole thing, again, when we go back to the Plandemic episode, it just confirms more and more that there's bigger things at play here. Yes, COVID is real. So please take care out there. Yes, we knew it wasn't going to just vanish overnight. Those are facts. But are these things being inflamed in terms of numbers and death rates and everything else? It's a question.
Food for thought.
Exactly. It's a question for me. Because like I said, if I had a conversation 2-3 weeks ago and I knew that this would be coming, and then now I'm seeing it play out right in front of me, come on. I'm a nobody in society. I don't have any position in governmental roles or whatever, but I got told that. So imagine how many people knew in key positions that, guess what? We'll be going into lockdown. But what do we need to do now? We need to strategize how exactly we're going to sell it to the people in a way that they will have no choice but to listen.
100, brother. 100. You expressed that exceptionally, and keeping on that theme of fear is the currency of control. Jay, I would like to bring you in.
Yeah.
Lockdown number 2, and I know you're our brother from across the seas, across the land.
Yeah. Well, here we've recently gone back under a second lockdown here in Trinidad.
Okay.
It's not the same. It's more or less the same measures we had of the last one. Whereas bars have to close at a certain time, and you can't have more than 10 people together in a gathering, 2 meters apart. Blah blah blah. You have to sanitize when you go in. You know, the normal stuff. It hasn't been like we haven't got any tier systems, which I'm still trying to. When I heard it, I was still trying to get my head around it in the UK. And his meaning behind it and his strategy and the key areas where he put tier 3, and then the certain areas where it's the highest tier seems to be predominantly areas of working class people, and how that's going to affect them. And obviously I went down my own little rabbit hole of thinking of why something like this was done for the second lockdown in the UK.
Express yourself, Jay.
For me, what I really got to, and the question I wanted to most ask myself is, how you said earlier, are people actually going to stick to it, especially being at the time of the year it is, especially after having the year that we've had as a world? This is the time of year predominantly everyone comes together. Are people actually going to stick to these new rules? And been thinking that I put a poll last week on my Instagram
Okay.
And I worded it a specific way. I said, with the state of the world now, and I put in brackets, people losing their jobs, etc., are you still going to celebrate Christmas as you have done previously?
Wow.
And 89% of the people said they would.
Hold up. Wait a minute. I won't even say the last part. I won't even say the last part. If you know that reference, you know.
And roughly, I won't lie,
Yeah,
roughly
Batman
about 30, 40 people voted. I had about 40 votes, maybe, for 39 around there, and 89% of them said that they would still continue to celebrate Christmas the way they did. And some people also added messages like,
where's the logic?
I've had a shit year, so I need some happiness, or
So I need to spend.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, stop it. Wait a minute. Get up. No, anyway. No, listen. So wait a minute. Times are hard. You have to ration. People are going to stores and buying all kinds of things to try and build up their stock. People are losing jobs. The economy's gone to shit. But I need to spend my money during the Christmas period and fill the pockets of the businesses to make myself happy.
Yeah, but that's a bit more. That's a bit more complex than that, because that's the whole.
That is the reality of what actually is. But we don't actually. So basically, that is what happens. But on the more personal, more emotional sense, they're not seeing that. People are not seeing that. But the reality is, you're going to celebrate. You're going to go buy in abundance. You're going to go buy toys. Because let's be real, none of these companies are going to stop pushing Christmas or any of these holidays on us because things are bad. They're going to encourage you to spend all your money. So people are trying to buy some sort of happiness to help. Like M said earlier, is that mental health.
And that's the sad thing.
And buying it, that like retail therapy or buying gifts, but that does kind of brings that brings some type of comfort, chemical reaction in your brain that makes you feel better. That's just a natural thing, you know what I mean? Like, but if you break it down, yes, we're just feeling the.
I mean, look at Jeff Bezos since the Corona pandemic. He is bringing in dough.
Yeah, most of the major billionaires have actually made more money.
So, I mean, on the grassroots level, we're just trying to buy happiness.
And that's the problem, isn't it? When you live in a society that focuses on materialism, that focuses on capitalism, where you feel you can get that the only way to improve your emotional standard is to, one, slave so you can get the money to spend. And in that slaving, you get depressed. And then in order to actually make yourself emotionally happy to get that lift, you then feel you must spend. That is crazy. That is, I tell you what, that is a perfect psychology for a capitalist society. It's perfect.
Perfect.
I'm going to make you depressed by making the fact that you have to work for the system. The system will break you down and make you so de-impressed that you feel that your complex emotional needs can be fulfilled by a simplistic purchase of the same money that you earn by slaving and feeling low.
Yeah,
it's almost like it's like crack. It's like it's like crack. It just came to me like that light bulb moment. It's like crack. This society is like crack, and the crack you're getting is money.
But the thing is, no one has everyone's. If you're not
get that high again,
is most people are not making either the same amount they're making a fraction of what they were making before, or none at all. Yeah. So what's the outcome of people who's got kids and they're not making as much money but still trying to put on the facade of everything's like?
Do you know?
Hold on. Let me just drop this one quickly. What happens when someone who's addicted to crack can't get crack? It's the same answer. Well, no. You asked the question. What happens when people can't? Blah blah. So what happens to crack people It's me. I'm serious. What happens to someone who's addicted to crack who can't get crack?
You get crack.
You get crack, fam. Yes, Trust me, fam. It's gonna be real out here soon, fam. It's gonna be real out here.
But in all seriousness, to be fair, they either find a way or they go really bad because of they have withdrawal symptoms. And using that as using the crack as an analogy, this is why. So going back to harking back to what you said, Kay, about humanity, and actually will people stick to it? Well, this is where there's a turning point. This is where it's kind of in the balance, because as T said, people, the gyms, people, there's a petition for the gyms. I saw that today. Like, people are starting to fight back because, and this is the difference between lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. This feels like this is like Plandemic part 3. But anyway, the difference is that we as a nation now know where our minds were and where our minds went during lockdown 1, and our brains, so our brains are overriding the authoritative kind of commands or kind of changes in the law or whatever, from because we know that that's not a good place. So we don't want to go there. So let's exclude the Christmas part of it, or the Christmas period, like just in general, just going back into a lockdown again. We know what is to come. We know that there's going to be more, like if it happens, that means there's more hardship, there's going to be more breakdowns in relationships, there's going to be more, like, what was I saw something weeks ago about there's been increase in domestic violence since lockdown, since COVID-19, increase in suicide
as well.
So if your brain knows, it's like if you know something bad's going to happen, like, why would you kind of gravitate, or why would you be happy that that's going to happen again? Like, if you know, if that's the inevitable, you're going to feel a bad way. So human instinct is now kind of override, telling you like, this isn't going to be good. So that's why people are actually fighting back and saying no, or this is why people probably saying no. I need, actually, it's now becoming a need to continue how my year. How many people had holidays planned that they couldn't go on, saved up? Me for one, that it would have been my first holiday in like 7 years. So all these things have been taken away from you, and to have a prospect of that happening again, I understand why there's 80% of people saying no, I'm going to carry on. I'm not endorsing it, but I understand it, because there's now a need for that release. If you've had literally,
I fully understand.
There's been it's all practically a whole year of no restriction, no, and guess what they've done? They gave you a little taster. You can go out again, like 50% off.
That's
go
peak,
on, go out, go out.
Peak.
Have a little taster, like have a taster of reality. No,
whip you back in the shit.
Come on, guys. Like, so as much as we're laughing about it, like, just think of like what that's doing to the psyches of everyone, whether you've got the strongest psyche or the strongest mentality, strongest mental health to the lowest, it will affect everyone in different ways. And so this is why when you hear those words, lockdown 2, when you look at Boris on the telly now, what's happening now, and we talk about this a lot, a cognitive dissonance is now starting to kind of come into play, because we know the facts and figures, or what's been portrayed to us about the effects of COVID, the impact it has on lives, etc. But we're seeing people physically, even, or literally say, you know what, I'm still going to carry on. That is cognitive dissonance, like when you know that actually something, but this is a different kind of dissonance, because actually you're actually thinking about your mental health.
I think
that's mad. It's actually mad. Oh my gosh.
I think what you're speaking on there is I would say it might be something else, rather than a cognitive dissonance, because it's not a lack of knowledge of something. It's more of a resilience. It's more of because of our knowledge of the outcomes from the restrictions, we're now going to resist it, because we don't want to experience that same situation. Whereas a dissonance would be that you are blocking off a thought or feeling from that reality. That's a dissonance. So I think there's more of a resilience in people.
The other aspect as well is, so we've been watching, right, the world leaders make up these rules, and also them breaking them, right?
Yeah,
that's true,
from start to finish. So when it's like, as a parent, right, when you tell your child or your children not to do something, you also need to lead by example, so that they listen and follow. Now, I can't tell my child right now, don't do this, and then in that very same sentence, I'll go and do exactly the same thing, and she's watching me.
Unless you say do as I say, not as I do.
That's
Then
not
that's
the correct
that's
way to teach.
then that's your insurance policy. I'm
Well,
joking.
that's your insurance policy,
That's not
but guess
correct.
what?
I'm
It's
only
never going to
joking.
work.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It won't.
it's never going to work. So that's one. We've seen them breaking the rules, like Boris doing carpentry, not even maintaining social distancing, no mask or nothing else.
Or Trump.
We've seen Trump do the same
He
thing.
got murked.
We've seen some what was his name again? He was the advisor to Boris, wasn't he?
I know who you're talking about.
At the start, where he brought the rules and went to his
I can't
girlfriend's
remember his
house,
name, you know.
or I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
remember either. I feel like Dominic Cummings is coming to my head, but I don't know whether I could be wrong. If I am wrong, apologies. So
Even earlier on this week, did you not see the MP? I think his name was Siobhan McDonough cleaning her glasses with her face mask.
I saw that.
No.
I saw that. I saw that. I saw that.
right.
I was creasing.
So when we seeing these things, we realize like these people really are not serious about this. They're ruining our lives when they're carrying on with theirs. Now, I was just thinking the other day, you know, as you do sometimes, and I thought, if the world leaders were serious about getting rid of this, what's stopping them? Every single country in this world to say, right, 2 weeks, no one moves. Wouldn't that get rid of it? Because what's happening, we're in lockdown at different times, right? So we go into lockdown for 2 weeks. People in Spain have finished their lockdown. Guess what? The British goes to Spain, they give it over there, it's the whole thing starts again. Or they come over here, the whole thing starts again. So we're going round and round in circles, right? What's stopping them saying, right, listen, we've had enough of this. It's literally causing havoc. The whole world stops. No one goes in and out, no flights, nothing. 2 weeks. That's what it takes, isn't it? And then the
The
virus goes.
implementation is hard.
That becomes way
It's
too
not. It's
political.
not hard. It's not hard.
Brother, you can't implement a worldwide stop movement thing.
No. What I'm saying, you can't implement it. But if there are world leaders who really care about this and they want to get rid of this, that's what they would do, because it's for the best for the people.
Of course,
but they
It's
would
not
never do that.
impossible. It's not impossible.
Yeah,
It's
from
not
a moral,
impossible.
from a moral and a humane point of view,
Yeah.
that's what. But from an economic standpoint and a political standpoint, and nah, that's
human lives,
economical.
Trump,
That's
all of
economical
that.
suicide.
No, but to
For
me,
who?
economically,
For who?
to me,
For me,
economically, that
everyone
makes
is
more
gonna suffer.
sense.
Everyone
That
is
makes
gonna
more
suffer.
sense
So for who?
economically.
For who? Because everyone is going to suffer. It
Yeah,
won't be
but-
just one country that will commit suicide economically. It's the whole world.
No. But you have to understand, not every country is equal economically. So there's certain countries that can kind of withstand, or yes, there might be a recession, but they can still kind of rebuild. But doing something like that could actually literally wipe out smaller countries or countries with like lower gross domestic product. Like it's
Okay,
it's very like, to do that, like you have to understand.
So let me ask you a question then, Ems. If that, say, it will wipe out a country which is struggling, like you said, or not on a better footing, what will it do when that country has to go into lockdown for 2 weeks? Will you not do the same thing?
Say that again. Sorry. Say that again.
So if that same country you're saying would get wiped out, what would happen if they had to go into lockdown for 2 weeks because the numbers have gone up in their country?
No, but that's different. But when you've got a whole world locked down, and bearing in mind, people, there's different. Like I said, it becomes a political nightmare and also an economical nightmare, because politically and also culturally, you might think from the UK we've got a perspective or we've got a view on COVID, but there's other countries that haven't had it as bad, and there's other countries that actually implemented kind of measures to reduce it better than us. So there's going to be conflict. There'll be world leaders saying, well, hold on a minute, you're now wanting to kind of have a world lockdown because this particular country didn't want to kind of listen to or look at the stats properly. Now you want to kind of bring us, now we're trying to rebuild now. So it will probably be more political than economical, actually. But I'm just saying, we're trying to rebuild now, and you're trying to kind of put us back into a lockdown because of your mishaps. It just creates an absolute nightmare. But if there's from my point of view, and I'm not a master. I haven't got any kind of qualification in economics or anything like that. So I might be completely wrong. I might be looking at it completely wrong. But just by what I know, like to kind of shut down the world at the same time, where there's no kind of trade, excluding kind of electronically, but there's no physical trade happening. It's not good. It doesn't look good. I can't see any good out of that. I'm not, but like I said, I'm just looking at it from a political, economical point of view.
And to focus it down,
I hear you, but I hear you. Sorry, Kate. I hear you, but for me, I think it's more political. Reason why? Because
Yes,
that would never
I agree.
happen in a million years. It could never happen.
I
But
agree.
I just thought if all the leaders were all they cared about really is to wipe out this pandemic and care for their people, that would be the most logical thing to do, in my eyes.
But
Right?
the
Whether
pandemic is also
I know
making
that.
money for
I know
people.
right? So, boys, I'm gonna step in as the host here. Yeah, you lot are deviating from the question. We are focusing on the UK and the impact on there, not the worldwide scale. We can always come back and hit that one because that is a serious one. So thank you very much for your input there. With the passion's real and the knowledge is real. That's what I do know. I just want to give the people a little bit of a spin for those who are listening in terms of what do we mean by the 3 tiers. So I'm just looking on the BBC News website for the simplistic rendition of what the 3 tiers are. The first tier is medium. And under medium, it states here that to follow the rule of 6. If you don't know what the rule of 6 is that you're allowed to associate in maximum of 6 if they are within your bubble. What does bubble mean? Bubble is the people who you associate with normally within your daily life. So you can't go and associate with someone who you don't normally associate with within your daily life. That's work. Your work colleagues would be be part of your bubble, and your household will be part of your bubble, and those who you associate with regularly. For example, if you do go to the gym with a friend regularly, that will be a person who's within your bubble. You're not allowed to associate with more than 6 maximum of those that are within your bubble. It also says, and that's only if you're meeting, that's if you're meeting indoors or outdoors. It also says that pubs and restaurants shut at 10 p.m. That's the lowest level. Yeah. High is tier 2. It's when no household mixing indoors. So I can't go to your house, you can't come to mine. Yeah. The rule of 6 will apply outdoors. Yeah. Pubs and restaurants will still shut at 10. Very high, which is tier 3, which is the maximum at this stage. It says that no household mixing indoors or outdoors. I can't even go out to the park and meet someone who isn't within my home. That's okay if you're living in a home with 3, 4, 5, or even 2 people in. What about those that aren't living with anyone? Then you can't associate with no one. That's very high. Indoors or outdoors. So your gym buddy, nope. Gyms might even be closed when it comes to very high. It says pubs and bars not serving meals will be closed. I've never understood this one really. Pubs and bars not serving meals will be closed. It also says guidance against traveling. Here's the key point. So when I was joking way back then about roadblocks where you have to go through police borders, guidance against traveling in and out of the area. I'm talking about towns, cities, and villages here, people. These are specific tiers based on towns, cities, and villages. This is not countrywide. So if you're in London, you will live by a certain tiering system than somewhere else in Manchester. They will live in a separate way. It's almost like you're now being turned into clusters. Yeah? Finally, the rule of 6A applies to outdoor places like parks and beaches. So if you go to a beach or park, you can associate, but they have to be within your household because you're not allowed to mix with anyone who's not within your household. So once again, this supports people who already have homes that are filled with people. Yeah. So they are the tiering systems: medium, high, and very high. I believe it was it Liverpool, which is the first city that got turned into a very high cluster, a very high city. Yeah. So that is what we are talking about. All right. Want to come on to a last point here now. and this might be a stickler for a lot of people, but we mentioned this within the COVID podcast. What is your opinion of a keyword here, mandatory vaccine? I'll say it again. What is your opinion of a mandatory vaccine?
Listen, all I'm saying is they better drag me out of my house to get that done. There is nothing mandatory in that. I can assure you right now, it's not happening for me. Whether it's mandatory or not, they better drag me out of my house.
So mandatory comes under the impression it's enforceable.
Yeah, then they better do that.
What does that mean to you when it comes to the point of they are doing it for the greater good, or so-called greater good?
So this is something I'm passionate about, because I've seen what they've done in Africa, where they done the experiments and the effects are still being felt even up to now. So I know this. Now, a vaccine, let's understand what a vaccine is. Vaccine is a small dose of the virus, right?
Yep.
So part of it will be a small dose that they'll actually give you the virus as part of the vaccine. So you will have the symptoms of COVID, right? Now, I don't trust, from what we've been discussing from the Plandemic podcast episode, where we discussed about how we generally feel this whole thing was planned, whether it be the powers that may be or a specific country. I don't trust the outcome of vaccines, period. If you feel a different way, please, by all means, go and get the vaccine, no problem. But for me, that's one thing I will hand on my heart say, unless they literally pin me down and do that, it's not happening.
I hear that, man, and that's powerful. I was gonna come with actually I am gonna come with another point in that as well. Can you remember when we were younger and we had to have our TB injections in school?
Still got the scars to prove it, bro.
I vividly remember having to queue up in school and we enter a room. Yep, I've still got the scar too. They've injected us with something as
It's
children.
like a bullet scar as well.
Yeah.
An injection that's turned into literally like a gunshot wound.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. Now, if it's mandatory, it will be rolled out like that. So these are children. These are your kids. That will be rolled out like that. Oh, man. I can't
Listen, from all the data they've been bringing out right now, it's not affecting kids as well from what figures they've been saying.
But it's a mandatory vaccine.
No, wait. That's what I'm getting to. It's not affecting kids, right? So for me, my kid will not be in school for that time. Period. Social services, if you want to come and do something else, please, then be my guest. But when the figures are showing that kids are not being affected, maybe they are, well, not maybe, they are, but literally the numbers are minimal.
It's reduced massively.
So for me, then I will say it's not happening.
Thank you very much for that, T. Nice and cutthroat and definite. I like that. Boys?
Yeah. I'm kind of on the same wavelength as T, to be fair. I don't know. It's a mad one. Like, I just don't like, for the most part, I don't like being told what to do within certain reasons. And when you put it like that, in terms of like, you can actually see the scar of something that was injected into you. Like, what other injections like really leave scars like that? Like, come on, like, what's going on? How many?
That's true.
That's so. But anyway, like, but more not necessarily about a physical scar. by the time this vaccine, if it's ever going to happen, comes, the majority of the population would have had COVID-19. Like they would have had it. Like every day we're seeing, especially from a sport point of view, this footballer's now been tested and now got it. So it's going around. Like I don't think it's going to go away. So more and more people are actually getting it in and recovering. It's part of their system now. So why? I understand why vaccines are there, but if you already now got that, or if you've already now been able to kind of fight that, and that's part of your immune system or your had it, I just don't understand what this vaccine is now going to do. Like if it was something where the vaccine was ready and it was to try and stop a lot of people from going, I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of the science, but I just don't agree. I don't like it. I don't like how all these things, how this is all planned out or panned out. And I, for one, won't be signing up for it at all.
Scene. Thank you very much for that powerful rendition. Jay.
Hey, bye. So, how I look at it, if it's going to be mandatory, there's nothing we can do. Right? My biggest question is what will be the consequence of of refusing to take it? How far
Yep.
are they willing to take it? For those that are not willing to take it, do you know? And that's my biggest worry, my biggest fear, my biggest concern.
Yeah,
100.
I think something with like this, the first people that are gonna have to take it is public servants. So our nurses, doctors, anyone who works in the public sector, policemen, firemen, for them to keep their jobs, they're gonna say to you, hey, you need to take this.
100.
yeah, that might be that's the biggest fear actually, that it's going to become policy.
I don't know, you know.
You don't think so? If it's mandatory,
If it's a mandatory government initiative, they are definitely going to get their staff members to do it first.
No, I don't know, because all right, the reason why I'm saying I don't know is, did you hear this thing about the police not being allowed to download the NHS app, Trace and
No, I haven't heard of that.
no.
okay. So police are not actually allowed to download that app.
For what? For themselves? For what?
Yeah, while they're at work, because obviously they're pretty much everywhere. So my understanding is how that app works is, if you were in the same building as someone who tests positive,
Mm-hmm.
Then you're to isolate.
the app would notify you and you would have to isolate.
Yeah.
Isolate, yeah.
Right.
Which means all police would have to isolate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
But that's not going to stop them from taking the vaccine, though. Even if they have been exposed.
Wait. So just looking at that, I know it's not related, but just looking at that, it's just making me think they will make it compulsory, but they will not enforce it on them. They'll just say you need to get tested so that it's not picked up. But for me, they will say the vulnerable first, would they have to take the vaccine? Right? I genuinely think it will be the vulnerable first. So people with underlying conditions, they would have to go on it first. And then they will start to filter it down. Whether it be that you work in the NHS or not, if you're vulnerable, they will say, right, because you are at risk, you need to take it.
If it's mandatory, it's across the board.
Yeah, it's not even a question, man.
It's
across the board, but how they roll them out, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, but eventually it's gonna have to come to them. So like measles, mumps, and rubella, no matter who you are or what standing you are in society, you have to take that vaccine. Or else your kids can't go to school.
No, you can refuse now.
Now you can refuse.
No, okay, let's focus on the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a mandatory requirement for you to take the vaccine for COVID. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with no what ifs, no any other questions jumping in and out. It's mandatory.
Has it been made
What's your
mandatory
opinion?
though, or that's what they're saying?
No, it hasn't been made. This is my question I'm posing as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hypothetically,
I think there's going to be an uprise, personally.
You see, I don't think so. I think a lot of people are scared, and they're just gonna go
Bro, people are protesting about wearing masks,
But that's a
let alone
small
vaccines.
that's a small amount of people. If you look
Right.
at the numbers, it's a small amount of people. More people are saying, "Listen, you need to wear your mask," and people are saying that don't. The mask is a conspiracy, etc.
Yeah, because their
I
mask
think
is
there's
not
more
doing them
sheep.
harm.
I think there's more sheep and more people are afraid
Always.
of this. So the en masse, the masses will line up to get to even go and get it.
Of course,
I think the masses will line
because
up.
because that's the cleverest thing, because the masses just want to get back on with their normal lives. And okay, if I take the vaccine, then we can get back to normal. If I took the vaccine, like I'm not at risk or whatever it is, let me have my life back. So I totally agree. I think the majority of people are waiting for it, so because they see that as the key to regain what normal was.
So it's almost like a bargaining chip.
Of course, but yeah.
Chip.
Exactly, and they're gonna make it.
Chip.
They will do exactly like we were just saying about the numbers will go up, things will get really bad, and then guess what? Knight in shining armor, vaccine comes along.
But that's
what they're doing.
This is what I can't
That's the
like.
play.
This is, oh my word! It's so I can't. This is so simple. The numbers were always going to go up from being in lockdown. As soon as you relax, that numbers are going to go up. Like it's just I don't understand why it was like such a shock. Oh, numbers are rising, whatever. And then you
And more
say,
tests.
and then you, of course. So there's more tests. You're now saying, right, you can all mingle now, or you can go, or keep your distancing, but you can go eat at this restaurant and whatnot. And more people are out and whatnot. Kids are going back to school, so kids are probably. I said, like, my missus was saying this today. The kids are probably the biggest carriers of it because they're in schools, they're mingling, whatever. Then they're going, they're around more people than anyone. So it was always gonna, like, numbers were always going to go up. That's why I'm like, this is as carefully as planned as possible, because in order to validate and justify having a vaccine, you need a number. Like, as
There
as
you
a as
go.
as,
And
as a
now you're
business
coming to it.
as a business, if you're doing a project or something like that, or if you're testing something in any business, if you're trying to roll out a new system, or go to your, if you're trying to go to your managers or powers that be to make a change, like change management, it's heavily reliant on data. It's heavily reliant on justifying why you want to make this change, or why you want to bring in this new system, or why you want to kind of use this new technology, because x amount of errors. I can't remember what the like technical word is in like business terms, but x amount of things are happening. This is the data to support it. This is why we need it. You have to go through that. That's like from change management. It's the key thing is, what data have you got to support it? So if you've got a like months worth of it's increasing, that's even worse than what it was in March. Really, is it? Of course it is. But that's the biggest data manipulation it will
I've
probably
ever
be the
seen.
biggest
I've ever
data
seen.
manipulation, because of course the numbers, if there's less tests than what there were back in March, and more people are, and since this virus has hit these shores, if there's been a period where people are inside, and then there's a period of releasing people back out, like, what do you think's going to happen? Numbers ain't going to go down, are they? Like, the virus is not, it's like flu doesn't just go away, does it? Like,
Nope, it's always been here. It always will be.
you know what I mean? Like, it's just, oh man.
So, okay. Thank you for that. Boy, I just wanted to mention on one aspect, and I think M touched on that a little bit as well. Business. Always look at the money trail. Look at the money trail, and you will find the originator, you would find the instigator, you would find the narrator of what's going on. I always ask this question whenever it comes down to all these world crises, everyone's panicking, blah blah blah. I ask the same question: who's benefiting, who's not benefiting? Based on that, there's a likelihood of finding out who's instigating and who's not. Who's going to benefit from an increase in COVID numbers? Who's going to make money? Who is the people who are going to create this so-called vaccine? Is this vaccine going to be produced for free? Of course it's not. It requires research and chemicals and lab testing and production and staff members. Who's going to provide all of that? Pharmaceutical companies, of course. I'm not going to dig in too deep about that. But pharmaceutical companies will benefit from this. Imagine having to sell someone something. You create a supply. Sorry, before you create the supply, you need the what? Demand. How do you create the demand? As M said, you release people and give people more movement so things can increase. And then now that there's a demand and everyone's crying out for some sort of cure because they want normality, which will impact their mental health and their emotional well-being. Now, in order to get that, you must now have a vaccine. Who pays for the vaccine? Government, which is taxpayers. Think about the chain, man. Think about the chain. Things don't just work in this world for random reasons. The world is the way it is in all its horror and it's all its greatness. The world is the way it is as you see it now because it wants to be that way. The movers of this world want the world to be the way it is now. That's just facts. Yeah. Now going on to the second point, a vaccine. If we really break down what a vaccine is, T said it nicely. Yeah. You need to actually first take a bit of the actual virus and then you use that within a vaccine. That's what happens. For example, with snake bites. In order to get a cure for the snake venom, you need some of the snake venom. And then you make the cure with the snake venom. Yeah? Now you need to ask the question. Ask the right questions. The question is, do we know what COVID-19 is? There's always been a narrative that we don't know what it is, but we know the symptoms. We don't actually know the virus. Has anyone actually zoomed in under the scope and said, oh, that's the coronavirus? No. No one has. So how can a vaccine even be created if you don't even know what the virus is? It's all in the air. We only know the symptoms. And based on the symptoms, you get treatment. It is crazy. Ask the right questions and you might get the right answers. Okay, thank you very much for this. One step away from quick little booster session, little bonus session where we jump in there. I hope this has been insightful. Nice little touch on our previous podcast. Please check them out. Black Lives Don't Matter. And I can't remember the COVID one. Boys, can you remember? It's called Plandemic. So Black Lives Don't Matter and Plandemic. Please listen back to them. It is the reference for this bonus one now. Yeah. Please, as I said at the start, please make sure you follow, like, subscribe, support us, and share. Please share this, man. We do this for you lot. We do this for you lot. We're in the essence to increase the mind capacity, which will then change the behavior. And that's what we ultimately want to do. Change the behavior and build a nation, man. Yeah. Thank you very much. We have been one step away from. We're out.